Imagine you're walking through the woods. Brush is thick. The trees get closer together. And it's getting dark. Suddenly you hear a rustling, and you run after it. Most people would turn the other way, but you're here for a purpose. You dive through the brush into the tall grass, and you've caught it. Something that's going to sit in the back of your party and only come out when you need to try to kick God's ass or your dog desperately needs to go to the vet. Oh, but don't worry. It can swim, and climb mountains, and break rocks, and anything else you need it to do. Welcome back, everybody. I am Gabe from Sinnoh, and this is the second part of our Isle of Time Pokedex design series. I want to give a huge thanks to everyone who checked out our starter video, where we made a grass fruit bat, a fire red panda, and a water type seabird. And if you haven't seen that video yet, please go check it out. This is the second in the series where we will be designing early route Pokemon. Early route Pokemon are the staple of any good team, with many people using them as HM slaves, and some people using them just to round out an extra set of hands for the first 1 or 2 gyms in the game. I know that in Black and White especially, Lillipup was one of my favorite early route Pokemon, and I use it to this day on most of my teams, with Stoutland just being, I think, a fantastic design for a dog Pokemon, and also just a pretty useful normal type as well. As I'm sure most of you know, the early route Pokemon tend to come in 2 forms, a 2-stage normal type and a 3-stage bird, often normal flying, but with some outliers like Talonflame. I've always been a really big fan of the early route Pokemon. I think many of them are kind of underappreciated, and I think they almost have as much identity as the starter and legendary Pokemon do themselves. They really set the tone for the type of Pokemon that you're going to encounter in this region, and they're often the first new Pokemon you see since picking your starter. So I knew for these I wanted to do something that was really appealing and could really hold its own with Pokemon that you would find later in the game, while still kind of sticking to these themes really closely and not straying too far from the road. One of the hardest parts when designing these was trying to strike that balance of how do you make something simple and clearly an animal, but still cartoonish and visually interesting enough that a kid would want to catch this and carry it with them. Simple animal, powerful monster, appealing to all different types of people. It's kind of a weird balance, and it definitely took some time and some work to nail down, but after a lot of searching, I settled on the giant anteater and the violet-backed starling. Anteaters, I think, are just really cool animals, and they're kind of weird looking enough to where they almost look like Pokemon themselves, but the only representation they've really gotten is Heatmor, and in a generation that had so many new Pokemon and being a single-stage fire type that you find late in the game, it just didn't really have a lot to stand on its own, and I felt like this was much better utilized as an early route normal type. While a lot of Pokemon tend to have crazy elemental inspirations or really layered designs, for the early route Pokemon, I just wanted to go simple. I wanted them to look cute, I wanted them to turn powerful, and I just wanted them to have a nice, rounded Pokemon-ness to them. Applying this to the first stage of the Anteater, Antini. Antini are very small, and seldom alone. Their small size and clumsy demeanor means they spend most of their time huddled onto their mother's backs, camouflaging into their thick fur. When brave enough to venture out on their own, they stay close to the ground, where their acute sense of smell helps them find food and their way back home if they get lost. When they do find food, their sharp-hooked claws can help them dig it up, and while normally quiet, when larger bug Pokemon chase them from their nests, they can let out a high-pitched grunt to call for help. In case it wasn't obvious, Antini's name comes from anteater, as well as teeny tiny, because baby anteaters are quite small and typically really vulnerable despite their sharp claws. When evolving, I wanted to kind of keep the size aspect really prevalent by making the second stage really big and with super impressive claws as its main form of attack, and really kind of built the whole design element around size and those claws. Goliant. Much larger than their previous form, Goliant are much more capable of finding food. They can smell bugs' nests deep beneath the earth, with such precision that they often don't even have to dig. instead using their long sticky tongues to trap bug Pokémon underground and pull them to the surface. Many Goliant even prefer this as opposed to using their claws, as their shine and sharpness is a point of pride, and they will often show off their claws as opposed to physically fighting each other for territory or mates. Trainers Goliants, who have often never had to search for their own food, will even be known to get distraught when their claws get dirty or chipped from excessive digging and battling. I am really happy with how these two came out. This was actually initially based off the purple anteater villager from Animal Crossing and then kind of transitioned over. And I was thinking how interesting it would be to have two purple early route Pokemon, but then I decided to kind of flip the Kanto early route Pokemon on their head, where Rattata being a purple rodent, we would instead have a larger brown mammal, and then instead of having a large brown bird, we would have a smaller purple bird, which is how I settled on using the violet-backed starling for its inspiration. Initially, I was worried that this would be too similar to Starly, but the violet-backed starlings have such a petite shape and vibrant coat that I figured as long as I leaned into the showmanship of the Pokemon, as opposed to the body shape, it would really kind of stand on its own. And the more I designed this, the better it started to look, and the more varied it started to look as well. Before we get into those designs, I do want to give another shout out to Oscar, or Our Grey Wind on Instagram. He does all of the final renders for these Pokemon that you're seeing today, and he will be for the foreseeable videos. And I really just cannot thank him enough. If you have the time, please go check him out. He does a lot of fantastic work over there, and there's just so much more to see aside from what I'm showcasing in these videos. Cantweet. Cantweet are common in suburban areas, often observing people from trees. They build nests out of shiny materials and will often refuse to leave them if Murkrow are nearby for fear of their treasures being stolen and their nests completely destroyed. Cantweet will try to mimic any noise or song they hear, often poorly. For this reason, hordes of Cantweet often sound completely different from each other, as their mimicry devolves into unique dialects. Despite their melodic sounds, Cantweet have become particularly popular in punk scenes, as their off-tune and offbeat mimicking can often create new, unique sounds, not that dissimilar from grungy garage band music. Starlings are known for their singing, and the violet-backed starling is no different. So I knew that as this Pokemon evolved, I not only wanted it to get more elegant and brightly colored, but I also really wanted to lean into the musical aspect of a Pokemon that gets more adept at singing and mimicking the sounds around it. Cantweet, while it's not great at it, when it evolves, however, Mellodee. Mellodee are known to have soft, somber singing voices. They can hear a note and match it perfectly, though they refuse to stop singing. Many trainers with Mellodee will keep them housed separately, so they don't accidentally offend them when they need to go to sleep or focus on other things. When Mellodee get into groups, they will compete over who can sing the loudest and who can sing the most intricate songs. It's been known that if a Mellodee loses one of these contests, they can become so offended that they will often move to different groups of Mellodee to try again, or they will follow Pokemon around, mimicking as many cries as possible until they can develop a new song and a newfound sense of confidence. So we've gone from a Pokemon that confidently sings poorly and can't mimic anything, to a Pokemon that won't stop mimicking and singing, even if it doesn't have the most confidence. So for its final stage, I wanted to go full choir, full conductor, full symphony, and we played around with a lot of different names kind of incorporating those. My favorite one being symphonies, as in simple symphony-ease. And then we also had Aurorachoir, or Core Aurora, to kind of mimic the colors on the coat. But the one that we kind of settled on that I really, really liked, Violechoir. Violechoir are known for beautiful singing voices. Wild Pokemon will often gather to listen to Violechoir sing, and Violechoir have such intense lung capacity and such a sense of showmanship that they will often not stop singing until every single Pokemon has either left or fallen asleep. They're particularly popular in more affluent social circles, as parents will buy Violechoir to help fussy children fall asleep and hosts will often buy Violechoir to let them sing to their guests for extended periods of time. Trainers, however, know that Violechoir's powerful singing can be used in a myriad of ways. When a trainer and its Violechoir are particularly close, they'll often be known to write entire symphonies and solely sing them for them or those that they deem caring of their trainer. And with that, we have all of our early route Pokemon for the Isle of Time project. And I think in the next video, I'll go a little more in depth on why it's called the Isle of Time project as well. The next videos that we are going to be putting out will be on new evolutions for existing Pokemon, and then we also have some new bug Pokemon coming down the pipeline as well. If you haven't seen the starter Pokemon for this project yet, please go check that video out, and I will put a link to that at the end of this one. And also, if you just want some laid-back Pokemon content to absorb while you wait for the next art video to come out, I do also card openings on the channel as well. We're currently going through all of the Mega Evolution projects, and also doing a daily pack of Mega Symphonia to try to get the Golden Gardevoir. As always, thank you all for watching. I am Gabe from Sinnoh, and until next time.